Every person in a long-term relationship carries some battle scars because part of giving your heart to another person is opening yourself up to being hurt. And this can happen in large ways, like infidelity or other major betrayals. But there are many kinds of hurts and betrayals that we can experience when we love someone. And that's why learning how to forgive your partner is a crucial part of the growth work that we all need to do in the service of our love. And that's why we're talking about it on today's episode of the Love, Happiness, and Success podcast. When we're angry, it feels like that love light turns off a little bit, or at least dims, and understandably so. I mean, it's hard to feel loving and open when you have been hurt, especially when you've been hurt by someone that you love and that you trust loves you, right? And the good news here is that there are steps to healing trust after betrayal. And when you work through these successfully and learn how to forgive, you might still carry scars, and you can do important work in the process that helps you come out the other side of this stronger than ever before, with even more trust and faith in your relationship. My hope is that by the end of today's show, you'll get some direction on how to do that. And welcome to the Love, Happiness, and Success podcast. This is a show for growth-oriented people on a mission to have better relationships, feel happier and better about themselves and their lives, and also feel able to create the kind of success that they want and deserve. So every single week, we're talking about topics related to that. And I am your very honored and grateful host. I'm Dr. Lisa Marie Bobby. I'm the founder of Growing Self-Counseling and Coaching. My background, I'm a therapist. I'm a licensed psychologist, a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm also a board certified coach. And so I draw from all of these different domains of my experience to bring guidance and direction for you. So thank you for joining me so much on today's show. And thank you for subscribing on YouTube and on the podcast if you haven't done that lately or yet. And of course, connect with me on my social media accounts. You can find me at Dr. Lisa Marie Bobby on Instagram, on Facebook, and of course, you can visit with me on my website, growingself.com, if you'd like to join the conversation there. So today we are diving into a topic that, resonates with us all, which is how to find forgiveness in relationships, especially when the hurt feels big. And I'll just say, forgiving somebody who has hurt you, especially a partner, is no easy feat. It's really a process. And it's a process that involves both people. And it also involves a commitment to healing. So today we're going to be diving into some of the components of forgiveness. There are actually 6 key steps that if you move through these and do the work of each will help you arrive in a healthy space of forgiveness. And I wanted to talk about these because some people, I think, really commonly without understanding almost the mechanics of forgiveness, it's easy to think that forgiveness is like a light switch. We just decide to forgive and then it's done and then we move on. And that's actually not how it works. And believing that can create unrealistic pressure on yourself, but also on your relationships too. So I'm going to be pulling from some evidence-based ideas from Dr. Sue Johnson, from Dr. John Gottman, who are 2 of the best researchers, in my opinion, in the field of marriage and family therapy. because they've really done a lot to illuminate the process of forgiveness and how it actually works in relationships so that you have access to this understanding so that will help you. I also want to just add before we dive in that the ability to forgive and do this kind of emotional repair work, I mean, that's really what it is not just about major betrayals or indiscretions. I mean, certainly this is definitely involved if you are healing a relationship after infidelity or after financial infidelity or some concealment or something really important. We definitely need to do this work. But there are so many other times when we need to be able to forgive and do this kind of work of healing in a relationship because of the things that we can experience day to day in relationships that are actually wounding to us. I mean, anytime our feelings are hurt, we have to repair that wound. And if we don't do that work, that wound festers. It doesn't go away. And over time, it can grow. It's almost like it becomes infected and it can damage our emotional relationship, our emotional connection with our partners. So I just wanted to say that out loud to reframe your understanding of when to deploy these skills. Because the truth is, like, we are all partnered with imperfect people, just like we are all imperfect people, right? And I mean, there are so many times that even if somebody's intentions are good or not bad, they can behave in ways or do things without even realizing the hurt that they might cause us. And so to be able to address this in productive ways and know how to heal it is really crucial, because none of us in a long-term relationship are getting out of this unscathed. Like, things happen. And I think that can even be one of the most helpful and powerful ideas to support you and your partner in this work, to have an expectation that in a good, healthy relationship, hurtful things won't ever happen. That can be traumatizing in and of itself if you believe that this means that there's something, uniquely wrong with this relationship because hurtful things have happened. I would argue that this is actually the experience of being in a long-term relationship with somebody who also doesn't know how to be a perfectly perfect partner. Examples of this can feel like trust that's broken when your emotional needs aren't being met in a relationship, when you feel like you can't talk to your partner, or there's been a pattern of emotional invalidation, or really any time that you feel uncared for or emotionally abandoned, especially in a time of need. That can create an attachment wound, an attachment trauma. But even small things like feeling criticized, feeling unappreciated, feeling like you're not being treated fairly, or being left to do more than what's reasonable, more than your fair share when it comes to running your life together. We don't think about these things as being situations that are hurts, that there's damage that's been done and that require forgiveness. But in my experience as a marriage counselor, there are different levels of resolving issues in relationships. And on that top level, it might mean making structural changes, how to be more emotionally supportive with our partners, right? That's something that a couple might come into marriage counseling to work on. And they do that work. They figure out how to talk to each other differently, be more emotionally available, be experienced as more caring and more loving by their partner. And so on that level, it has been resolved. It's been repaired. Those two people have learned how to do things differently and then can move on into a bright future. And on a deeper level, before this can really be like healed and over and everybody has closure, we could just all go do the new things now, I always also have to talk about the damage that was done in the time before people learned how to do things differently. Because even though somebody now knows, oh, when my partner is going through something, here's how I need to respond to them in order for them to feel loved and cared for and supported by me. But the person who has been hurt in the past still needs that hurt to be known, understood, respected. They need their partner to understand how not okay that was. And working through those pieces is part of what needs to happen to restore the bond of trust. Because unless we work on that level, even if somebody is behaving differently and like saying the right things now, when there has been unrecognized hurt, there's always this fear that it's going to happen again, or they're just going through the motions, right? The other shoe is going to drop, and people don't really feel emotionally safe. So that trust needs to be restored, and that forgiveness needs to be attained for the person on the other side to really feel like they get a second chance to show that they have learned, that they have grown, they have evolved, and that things really will be different next time. Because without that, even if the person who maybe has done hurtful things in the past is now doing all of the right things, there can still feel like this anger, this resentment, this unfinished emotional business that makes them feel like, you know, they can never do enough or be enough to make up for what has happened in the past. And that too can really drag a relationship down and even make it hard for that person who's working so hard to be a better version of themselves to sustain that and keep moving forward. So this is happening on a lot of different levels and many situations where forgiveness can be an important part of the conversation. So when it comes to forgiveness, how do you forgive? The very first thing that I always need to address is not the question of how to forgive. It is, should you forgive? And just to be very clear, if you have been experiencing very hurtful, damaging, wounding things in your relationship, the first thing that you need to work through, ideally with the support of a very competent couples counselor, is whether or not there is a basis for forgiveness, meaning, are you still in danger of being hurt in the same way again? Have the issues that created the original hurt been successfully resolved? Because I am a firm believer that all of our dark emotions are extremely valid and they're there for a reason. And so certainly it's not helpful to hold on to anger or resentment in a relational dynamic where somebody has really done the work and they have earned your trust again. They have atoned truly for what they've done because of growing into different people who won't do that to you again. But if you don't know that you are actually safe with somebody, they haven't done the work, they haven't shown you that they are trustworthy, you might not want to forgive them yet. Or you could also alternatively make a protective choice and say, I haven't experienced what I need to experience in this relationship from you in order to trust you and believe that this is actually resolved. You might still choose to forgive them emotionally, but you might not want to maintain a relationship with them if this is not a situation where that would be a good idea. So I don't want you to feel like all needs to be forgiven and you don't have a right to be angry or to have expectations or need the person on the other side to be the partner that you need them to be. I think that sometimes when people feel like they have to forgive and forget and move on, they're doing so at the risk of their own emotional well-being and their own legitimate needs and rights in a relationship. So I just wanted to say that out loud because forgiveness is almost one of the final steps in the process of healing. There's growth and healing that needs to happen in an ongoing relationship prior to forgiveness being feasible or even recommended. So, I'm going to assume that listening to this podcast, you have or are doing the work that we're talking about here related to repairing those bonds and restoring trust in a relationship. If you're not, you are welcome to go back into my podcast feed and to find episodes that I've recorded specifically on this topic. I have episodes around how to mend a relationship after infidelity, how to restore trust in a relationship. And of course, there's articles on my website, growingself.com. If you come into the blog and podcast section, come into the healthy relationships category, you can find playlists and curated content collections for you there. So it's all there for you. And certainly, if you're not doing that work, I just want you to know it can be very hard work to do. And it's important that you're working with a competent, licensed marriage and family therapist who practices evidence-based forms of couples and family therapy to help you and your partner do the repair work and make the structural changes necessary so that you are in a place where you can forgive once that work has been done or is being done. And certainly if you'd like to do that work with me or somebody on my team here at Growing Self, you can get in touch with us. Come to growingself.com and you can request your free consultation meeting with a real relationship expert to talk about what's happened and to put together a plan to help you achieve the healing that you need in order to be able to forgive. So then, assuming that it is a good idea to forgive your partner, let's talk about some of the steps, the stages, the mechanics of forgiveness. And for these, I'm going to refer to the work of Dr. Susan Johnson, the thought leader behind emotionally focused couples therapy. And what she really emphasizes in this forgiveness process is that to care, to feel cared for, is truly the first and most crucial step. And this really requires the offending partner truly recognizing and even feeling the depth of the hurt they've caused, and then genuinely caring about their partner's pain. If you haven't done the previous levels of work, it's hard to have that kind of moment with your partner. If they're still feeling defensive or if they're upset that you're upset, right? We can't do that. So pre-work is involved. But to arrive at that moment where the person who did the hurting really understands the depth of that is a crucial first step. But that's also just the beginning. There are other steps and stages for this. The next is that the partner who has been hurt really needs to have the opportunity to express that pain openly and in an emotionally safe environment where their partner can hear it. And in these moments that are oftentimes, just to be honest with you, best facilitated by a couples counselor in order to maintain the emotional safety, because it brings up a lot of feelings, right? But for the person who has been hurt to go into detail and share the emotional impact and talk about why it was so hurtful, to say things like, I felt betrayed in this moment, or I felt very alone. I felt abandoned when you did that, so that they have the experience of saying their pain out loud, articulating it, and having it be received. On the other side, it's incredibly important, and forgiveness can't really happen in the context of an enduring relationship unless the offending partner is able to really listen and hear and acknowledge. And that means that they need to stay present, stay calm, and manage their own emotions to the degree where they can be receptive to their partner's feelings and acknowledge the pain that they've caused. Because until it's recognized and validated, forgiveness, in the sense that we're talking about today, can't begin to happen. That people will stay stuck unless it's received. Once these two things happen, there's actually stages beyond this. Think of it as emerging from behind a wall, right? When somebody has been really hurt, they go into self-protection mode. Maybe they've been angry or hostile. Maybe they've been shut down and quiet, but it has been a protective space. But when this sharing and receiving happens, the person who has been hurt can begin to take down that wall and share more about the depth of their hurt, the betrayal, their pain, what it meant to them, even outside the experience itself, like what did it do to their understanding of their partner or their trust in the relationship? I mean, there are lots of pieces of this, but the goal here is for the person who has been hurt to be even more vulnerable in an emotionally safe way. And then on the other side is for the person who did the hurting to take ownership, take responsibility for what happened and the pain that it caused, even if it wasn't intended in the way that it came across or was received, and also to apologize for it. For the injuring party to take ownership and responsibility of the pain they caused, say, I made a mistake and I'm so sorry. That, when it is coming from a felt and authentic place, really legitimizes the other person's pain and offers a genuine and authentic, sincere apology that is the kind of apology that mends. And that apology then becomes the bridge to reconnection. But the person who did the hurting has to be the one that essentially creates that bridge that then invites the person who has been hurt to walk over. Okay, I'm going to trust you again. I'm going to start walking towards you again. And then from there, the next stages of this process involve talking about needs. The hurt partner might talk about what they need for closure and able to express that really directly to their partner, who hopefully would respond appropriately and empathetically. It can be very powerful to have conversations around what could be different, right? If anything like that ever happens again, here's what I need from you instead of what you did the last time. Or could even be conversations around, in order to continue restoring trust and goodwill, here's what I need from you in order to help me feel close to you again. And again, the person on the other side being responsive to that and saying, yeah, you got it. Here's what I'm going to do differently instead. Or better yet, even having conversations around, here's where I can see that I made mistakes in the past. Here are the things that I've learned, and here's how I'm going to handle this differently going forward. That's to be able to experience the growth and the change that's happened is hugely powerful in restoring trust, and also really leads to that forgiveness and reconnection. But then even after that, there's this opportunity for a couple to be working together to create a new story and be able to tell themselves and each other this narrative, right? They experienced a trauma that resulted in a betrayal or a hurt of some kind. They understand why it happened, and then they understand how they were able to face this pain together and have these new emotionally corrective experiences together, where the hurt person was able to talk about that. The person who did the hurting was able to listen and understand and be responsive to it. And because of having had those experiences, they then saw each other in a different way and began the work of healing together. And then, it's might always still be a scar, right? We don't forget the bad things that happened, but with a new story, we can see the events that unfolded as being part of our relationship that actually became a vehicle for increasing intimacy and closeness, restoring trust, but also as something that really catalyzed important growth that might not have happened had you two not gone through that together. So these steps, easy to talk about, can be very hard to do. They require a lot of courage and a lot of vulnerability. They also require a lot of emotional regulation and emotion management, because particularly in these kinds of vulnerable conversations, when people are going into the hardest parts, feelings come up, and it can be fairly easy for these feelings to derail the conversation. Frequently, people are feeling angry when they've been hurt, and that can come out and derail things. Similarly, people who did the hurting may feel guilty. They might feel shame, or they might have unrealistic expectations about what should be happening, right? We need to just move on and let it go, not really understand, legitimately not understanding that isn't how this works. And so in doing so, it can create another relational trauma where they wind up invalidating their partner instead of being responsive to them in those moments. And because this work is so truly difficult to do, particularly if you have gone through a significant relational trauma or betrayal, I would strongly encourage you to get professional support from an experienced, qualified marriage and family therapist, ideally one who's well-versed in emotionally focused couples therapy, to help the two of you stay in a space of emotional safety so that you can navigate this journey together. And so just a word of advice, if you try having these kinds of conversations on your own and they don't work, you're not getting the kinds of responses that you're hoping for from your partner, it feels like you guys are continuing to stay stuck. That's just a sign to make an appointment with somebody who's qualified and who can help you, because the alternative is to have this unfinished business always be at the center of your relationship and unaddressed. It doesn't go away just because you guys aren't talking about it. So if you care about your relationship, this is something that's really important for you to invest in. It'll keep your relationship healthy. And there are so many benefits of doing this work. When we hold on to negative emotions or have these unresolved, wounds, it really takes a toll on individuals and on relationships. Again, even if we're not talking about it, even if we're not fighting about it, it can still color our perceptions of how we feel about our partners, and it can come out sideways in our day to day. And to do the work of changing the source of the hurt in the first place, but then also really doing the work of forgiveness that allows us to restore that emotional connection. It not just mends the wound, it also really, I think, restores the vitality of a relationship, and it helps us see what is possible for our future together in a different way because of having those incredibly powerful experiences with each other as we work towards forgiveness. And so, lastly, it's essential to understand that forgiveness is not forgetting. It is not condoning hurtful actions or saying that's okay. It is instead an active, loving process of reclaiming our power, really facing very clearly the hurt and the damage that has been done in an authentic and honest way, but then engaging in this healing relational process so that we can be truly mended and then can move forward into a new chapter. And in the context of an ongoing relationship, this work of forgiveness needs to be done by both people. You can't do it unilaterally if your partner isn't participating in the forgiveness process. You can certainly maintain the relationship, but I wouldn't expect that you will really feel at peace or that this has been healed unless they're participating in this with you. And I think the path of forgiveness for, somebody that you're not in a relationship with is different than the one that we're talking about today. And, if somebody does something to you, or if you're the victim of a crime or something bad, you can work through an individual process of forgiveness that is simply your own in order to create closure and to release the negativity, whether or not that other person participates. But that's not what we're talking about today. Today, we're talking about a relational forgiveness process. So I hope that that's helpful for you just in understanding the landscape here. But thank you, as always, for joining me. We're doing a deep dive today into the intricacies of forgiveness in relationships. And just, remember that it's a journey. It is a process. It requires a lot of understanding and compassion, but most of all, a genuine desire to rebuild and strengthen the bond with your partner. We talked a little bit about how to get help. Certainly, if you'd like to do this with me or any of the marriage and family therapists in my practice here at Growing Self, you're welcome to get in touch at growingself.com. And you can also find so much more conversation on this topic and adjacent ones related to trust and forgiveness and betrayal and healing emotional wounds. If you come to growingself.com, find the blog and podcast, and from there enter into the love collection and look for content related to emotional and sexual intimacy, healing after affairs. There's a whole affair recovery content collection, healthy communication, emotional intelligence, relationship clarity. All of those can support you on your journey here. But I will also say, just straight out, none of that content, like a podcast or a blog post, is going to replace the kind of support that both of you need to actually work through the process. That requires an experienced couples counselor to be in the room with you, having conversations, creating emotional safety, and guiding you both through this process of healing. It is a process. Listening to a podcast or, again, getting advice from a blog post is not the same thing as doing the work that's facilitated by an expert. So I just wanted to be very clear about that. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll be back in touch with you next week with another episode. Until then, take care.